tear down the house, then you put up the rent. You pocket the cash, and you crush all dissent.
Hello and welcome to The Red Diaper Pail, a podcast about art, culture, history, politics, technology, and parenting from a left perspective. This is episode 8, and it is Wednesday, November 5th. And my name is Simone.
And I'm John Paul. So first of all, I want to thank people because this is the 8th episode. By our 6th episode, we hit 200 listens and downloads, which is amazing. Thank you all so much. This has been really fun. I feel like it's brought me and Simone closer together. Please continue to help us build an audience. Subscribe to the Substack if you're not already subscribed. Tell friends to listen to it. Help spread it around a little bit. I think it's a really good podcast I think the people who get the most out of it are like politically curious normies with kids. So if you know anyone like that, that's our key demographic. We'll turn all those people into communists.
Yeah, subscribe, like, comment. It's good for the algorithm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm also grateful. And I can't believe we've been doing it for 8 weeks, which means we've been doing it we've almost been doing it for half the twins' life.
Yes.
Which means we started much younger than I thought we did. But it's fine.
That's okay with you?
It's okay. That's fine.
I mean, we haven't missed a week yet. So that's what's really impressive, given all the crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, lice,
going back to work, that kind of not going that great. Having 5 kids, soccer practice, illnesses. Those illness episodes were tough.
They were very good. That's not true. They were fine. Okay, so tonight we have a couple of headlines, and then we have an artifact about what?
Are fewer young people identifying as trans? This is like a new hobby horse of the right, is that they destroy wokeness, and now the kids don't want to be trans anymore.
Okay. Well, that'll be fun. What's your favorite lice treatment?
Oh, God.
All right, well, I have 2 headlines this week.
Okay.
One is...
They're both horrible, I hope.
Only one's horrible. I actually have 3 headlines. One is very good news. One is horrible. And one is neither.
Ambivalence news.
Yeah. The very good news is Dick Cheney is dead.
Yay! Round of applause.
He decided to expire on Zohran Day.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my other headline that I'm not going to call horrible, which is that Mamdani won the New York City mayoral election.
He sure did.
He won handedly.
He did, but only, I think, handedly because there's 3 people in the race. But
I haven't looked at the numbers specifically. I will say he was 6 months ago. John Paul was like, "That's never going to happen." And I said, "It is going to happen," and I was right.
Yeah, at the time,
I've been right a lot this week.
You have been right a lot this week. You've been right a lot your whole life.
It's true.
So before Cuomo had entered the race, he was beating Zohran by 20 points. So I said, there's no way. But I was absolutely wrong about that.
100,000 people volunteered to work on his campaign. 1 million people voted for him. It had the best voter turnout in the last 50 years in New York City, 60 years in New York City.
Yep. 88% of new registered Democrats were in New York City just for this race. New York State new party signups were in New York City, probably because of his ground game, which was so good.
First Muslim mayor, not the first socialist mayor in New York.
No,
that is he's
Eric Adams.
Yeah, he's a socialist.
Mike Bloomberg,
also a socialist.
long line of socialists.
No, there were socialist mayors many years ago.
The funny thing is, if Cuomo had just run as a Republican, he probably would have won governor, which is, if you think about it, is absolutely, mayor, which is absolutely crazy if you think about it. Well, the Democrat had just run as a Republican, but
he would have had to dispose of Curtis Sliwa to do that.
Yeah. So we don't actually agree on this one that much. And I'm much less, I am happy for the people that this meant a lot to, and I have a lot of friends who this meant quite a lot to them. So I'm happy for them that they got to have a victory. I'm also happy that the population, as a barometer of where public opinion is in New York City and the country, I think it's promising that Cuomo didn't win over Zohran, because that would be depressing.
Mm-hmm.
But just as it's just a sign of like where people are. But as like a political project, I have very severe misgivings. So, do you want to tell me why you're excited about this, or like what makes you happy about this?
I think we agree that as a political project, this is probably not going to work. But
so wait, what? Okay, go ahead.
It's mostly cool. It's mostly exciting to see as a experiment in campaigning, that you could see a campaign run like that and the DSA have that kind of membership and people, and a lot of it's like, as a barometer, it's good news. It's good news that people can vote for a socialist Muslim. It's good news that everyone's excited about that. It's good news that, honestly, it's good news for the whole country that people aren't seeing the Trump administration and being like, I want more of the fascism. So even though they're not necessarily voting,
or so freaked out by it that they're not willing to take risks or go for it.
Yeah. And even though, I think it's exciting that the population can demonstrate that it's more progressive than we were 5 years ago. This population, I think, in this group of people, there's better leftist politics. More people are more engaged in it. There's more leftist parties. There's more leftist organizing. There's more leftist vocabulary in the country now than there has been our entire life. So that's good news. I don't know how he's going to be a socialist mayor of New York City, but it's kind of fun it's also very good news and very fun for me to see all the millions of dollars that rich people had to waste on a campaign that they still got their ass kicked on. Love seeing that.
That is, I think, the best part about this is watching them reveal themselves for what they really are has been very satisfying. For example,
Chuck Schumer.
Well, I was going to say Cuomo ran a gutter racist and openly racist campaign. Yeah. You cannot be Muslim. That means you're a terrorist. You cannot be, this guy is not a religious extremist in any sense of the word. It was only racism that they had. It reminded me of some of what Hillary tried to do to Obama way back when in 2008, but it was more openly, right? It was just sort of gutter open racism, and he should have been condemned out of the party. They should have said, "Oh, there's no place in the party for someone who's running a campaign that's this openly racist." And he's running as an independent, I guess, but he should have been sanctioned by censured by the party for the campaign ads that he ran. And they didn't. They all wanted him to win, and everyone knew that they wanted him to win anyway. And this is the last bastion of reactionary politics is extreme racism. It's the last card they play, and they will always play it.
He clearly the standards are low. Obviously, they were made peace with who Cuomo was, and it was and he made it obvious every step of the way how unfit he was for this, how ridiculous it would be for Democrats to support him because is a failed governor who killed old people and sexually harassed young people, and then was explicitly racist over and over again, and also basically spent the entire time dodging ever having to talk to the people he wanted to govern.
Yeah.
And
he felt entitled to govern.
And I think that, yes, it's very good that people like Jeffries and Schumer and all these fucking rich guys like Ackman these people have already revealed themselves for who they are, but they really revealed themselves for who they are. And that's great. And they also wasted a ton of money. And now they're still stuck with this guy as mayor. That's great.
Yeah.
But I think Cuomo could have done anything and they would have supported him. And that was the agreement from the beginning.
Right. And that's good because it's all on record now. This is what you all believe when push comes to shove. I mean, Cuomo, the campaign strategy to win the primary was that he was going to make, this is another echo of Obama. He was going to make the Gaza genocide a primary issue because he looked at New York and said, "Oh, this is a bunch of Jews. They're going to eat him alive if he sticks to his principles." And Zohran, like Obama was right about the Iraq War at the right time. he wasn't there to make the vote, so he got lucky. Obama got lucky, but he was right about the Iraq War at the right time, and Hillary was wrong about it. And it was on record being wrong about it, and so she was pushed into the right wing lane of that primary, and he got to run as a reformer. And the same thing is true with Zohran. Is like the more Cuomo wanted to talk about the international issue that had nothing to do with governing New York City, the better Zohran did, because people saw he was right about that issue at the right time. Everyone saw this horror unleashed. They do not support the Democratic Party's position on it. I think the Democratic Party wants you to believe that you have to have that position to be a viable candidate, right? Because that's the only way to get enough donors, and that the public opinion is what it is, and yada yada. And Zohran was like, no, you don't have to actually, it's actually even better not to have that position. And he proved that true too, at least in New York City. But now the problems. One, he's not a socialist.
He's a democratic socialist.
He's a democratic socialist, which is another word for Keynesian welfare capitalist, not a socialist of any kind. It's a euphemism.
Well, I don't think the DSA is a Keynesian capitalist.
I don't know what everyone in the DSA, I don't think everyone in the DSA is that. I think there's a war going on in the DSA to figure out what it is. But what he is a pro small business, you should have private ownership of the means of production, and you should have welfare programs which bolster the lives of working people, but funded through taxes. That's what he is. And so if you do that, and you call yourself a socialist, it's confusing to people what is socialism. I spend a lot of political education time trying to explain to people what socialism is. Socialism is working people are in power and in control of not just the government, but of the economy. Zohran, the people in charge of the economy in New York City will still be business owners. They will not be working people. And he's not pushing for that. Now, maybe he wishes that he could push for that, or in his ideal world, that might be true. But in the meantime, it's very confusing to people. So the confusion is fine. You can clear up confusion. The real problem is people's experience of capitalism is horror. And their experience of government welfare programs, particularly ones that are under constant pressure to be closed by a reactionary right wing, is this sucks. This is nowhere near good enough. I would rather go to a private hospital and be wealthy than be poor and go to whatever this public clinic is, right? So they go and they have those experiences. They say socialism is waiting in long lines at the post office as opposed to having someone really helpful at UPS. That's what their experience of socialism becomes, because they don't understand that when the guy is saying I'm a socialist, what he actually means is I'm a welfare capitalist. That's one problem, is it distorts people's class consciousness of political education.
Well, maybe their experience of socialism will be hundreds of thousands of grassroots organizers organizing to achieve something. Or maybe it will be...
Achieve what, though?
Getting
him elected is not an achievement for working class people, unless he can do something substantially for their life.
Well, I think that the capacity building of doing the organizing is very important. And in our current world, electoral politics happens to be what most people can most understand how to organize around. So I think that there's a lot of momentum and goodwill created in doing the organizing, and that's good.
Isn't that a self-fulfilling prophecy, though? You had, how many volunteers did you have?
100,000.
100,000 volunteers willing to go door to door and talk to people.
Yeah.
Not about what capitalism is and why it's bad. Not about...
I don't know that they were talking about that.
You know what they're talking about. They're talking about Zohran Mamdani.
They built their platform largely by doing by canvassing and doing listening while they were canvassing and building their platform as they went. Like the free bus fare came from listening.
Okay.
So I think that they were talking to New Yorkers about what are the social issues that matter to you, what are the economic issues that matter to you, and how do we organize about those. And the outcome that they were ultimately looking at was to elect a mayor. But I think that now the outcome can be more specific, policy-based. And I think that level of organizing and coalition building on the left is a positive form of politics that people now associate with socialism and democratic socialism and the DSA. And I do think most people also associate that with at least a critique of how things currently are, if not how capitalism is.
I think how capitalism is working right now, not of capitalism itself.
So how capitalism is working right now is what we were all criticizing 10 years ago. Now most people are criticizing capitalism.
So that's perfect. And this is my response to you is the argument that they did this thing puts the cart before the horse. The people did this thing. The people in New York City are fucking sick to death of capitalism, and they're looking for an alternative.
Yes.
And the alternative that was offered to them was welfare Keynesian capitalism.
Let's see what happens.
Not the alternative they need, not one that tells the truth about their predicament and the way out of it.
So
channeled all that discontent back into electoralism.
Who says that the DSA and the 100,000 volunteers and the 1 million voters and Mamdani himself cannot continue to can't now that he's elected, tell a true story about capitalism?
Because I know he can, because he's already made peace with the leadership of the NYPD, which are the same NYPD that was brutalizing Gaza protesters in Colombia.
Peace with them?
Yes, he made peace.
What does that mean?
He's decided to keep multiple members of the top brass of the NYPD in place and not go to war with them. So that's one thing. Right.
Well,
and he said, I don't blame them. I blame Eric Adams. I don't blame them.
54 days between now and when he takes office. So I guess there's something for people to get organized around if that really is an issue that people want to take up. I can tell you that there is a bunch of progressive legislation that went to the mayor's office the last 3 or 4 years and got vetoed every single time by Eric Adams. So there are progressive coalitions that are trying to push through progressive ideas that at least now aren't going to get vetoed out of the gate. And I can also tell you that kind of organizing that can go from him being basically a nobody to him being the mayor of the capital of American empire and calling himself a socialist means that there's power in what's going on. Now, whether that power is going to be harnessed to do anything, I don't know. But I don't think you can dismiss that that's meaningful. And I do think that people are more critical of capitalism.
I know. I'm saying they're critical of capitalism. And they're saying that they got for that all that discontent is what they got was a guy who, for all intents and purposes, does not have a critique of capitalism, a fund
for them, and they can do and
because he was the only option.
Well, he wasn't the only option. So a lot of other people were running.
Well, the people who went door to door made a decision that they're going to spend their time and money and energy on a political project, which was to funnel people back to electoralism with the promise that you can reform the Democratic Party. And that's what this is really about, is a battle within the Democratic Party to reform it back to being something like a New Deal party. That's the actual reform that's happening. And these people think that they can win, and they might be able to win.
He got...
At least ideologically.
I mean, you're going to hate this, but he voted for himself on the Working Family Party's line, not the Democratic line. Like, there's
fine, sure.
Interest in, it's not just reforming the Democratic Party. I know that this creates this bizarre lifeline for the Democratic Party, even though the Democratic operatives are desperately trying to reject it, which gives a bunch of the people who live in the United States to like, oh, the Democrats aren't that bad. Look at Zohran, blah, blah, blah. I know that's very dangerous. I also don't think that that's all that this is and all this has to be.
So I hope to be wrong. And I think what we agree on is that if he is able to accomplish anything, it'll be because he avoids the mistake that Obama intentionally destroyed the electoral coalition that put him in power and therefore did not have anyone pushing him.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think he's going to take those Obama steps.
No.
I think he intends to keep that coalition.
We'll see.
Also, the coalition, screw what he fucking thinks. The coalition can decide that they're not going to be destroyed. He is now not the centerpiece.
No, he very much is the centerpiece. That's
the
centerpiece. Problem.
They elected him. Now he should not be the centerpiece.
Well, we'll see.
So I'm just saying it's not.
But there a lot of people have staked their political claim on him. So now they have to defend him. They have to defend him when he sends it in.
They don't have to defend him.
To put down a protest, they have to defend him.
They don't have to defend him.
Or I lied to you. He is not actually a socialist. Socialism is something else. What I told you was socialism and was going to make everything better. It's not because I was wrong. Now, believe me, the next guy is a socialist, and you should vote for that.
They can defend the ideas, and they can say that this is not what we want, and they could talk about why he's doing what he's doing, but he should not be centered. He was the center. Electing him was the center of the project. That project is over.
You're giving them advice that they're not going to take.
I don't know. How do you know that?
All right, so if they don't take your advice, you say I was wrong about this. They are going to make Zohran the center of the political movement.
I'm saying that they should not. I'm not saying that they are, or I don't know. Listen, I'm not in the DSA. I imagine there's a steering committee that is spending a lot of time deciding what they're going to do with this. If they're listening, I would suggest that he is not the center, and that should be front and center in your talking points, in the party, outside the party, to him. Probably he should be saying it out loud. He's not the project now. The project was to elect him. So, that is not what the project.
Just to take a step back for a second, just to illustrate this a little bit more, like, he's not a legislator, which is a much easier thing to be as like a liberal left, radical left person. Like AOC, it's much easier to be a legislator because you just do votes. You know, she's fumbled that, in my opinion, but that's much easier. Being a mayor and having to govern means having relationships with, yes, unions, political parties, religious communities, civil rights leaders, but also police departments, trash pickup places, the governor's mansion. There's about 1 billion rich people in New York City that he has to figure out some working relationship with them to govern. And this is like the communist critique of this is you cannot do it this way. You have to bring the government apparatus back to default and start over. You cannot seize it and make it work for you. So like you sounding this.
I don't disagree with that. Also, we have a current set of circumstances. So what's going to happen? I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's all of it is as doomed as you think it is. And I think there couldn't be positive things that come out of this.
Everything positive that could possibly happen will be completely undone the moment he does not fire police officers for beating. Like, you're saying two things that are contradictory, right? And there's always contradictions in politics. That's fine. You're saying that in order for him to get rent stabilization across the city, which is a promise of his, he's going to need massive public demonstrations and pressure.
I don't know that I've said that, okay, or that he needs that.
All right. You're saying he needs a movement behind him that will stay behind him and push and make sure that like there's a political counterweight to all the reactionary pressure he's going to feel. I agree. Right? We agree on that. And that's what he won't do what Obama did, which is destroy the electoral coalition. He's going to keep it as a governing coalition.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. The same person who needs that governing coalition to be as like militant and outspoken and willing to be in the streets and stuff, he needs that. He also is a person who governs public safety and governs the NYPD, who will be there right here at the same protest.
Governing them, or is he their boss?
He's their boss, but he also has to function. So
have you seen how bosses work, though?
How do the bosses work?
I mean, if my boss tells me to go do something, mm-hmm, I have to go do that thing.
Yeah. Even
if I'm the police.
Yeah.
And
which is why most people will expect that they won't be there firing tear gas in people's faces. But what will happen is they will be firing tear gas in people's faces, and he will either have to have a very dramatic public confrontation with the NYPD, which I don't think he's willing to do, but let's say maybe he does, or he has to stand by them and completely unravel the political coalition. Because he's basically supporting the fascist thugs who are undoing.
Well, I don't know what he does in that situation. It's possible,
but he can't stop them. My point is he can't stop them even if he wants to, because it has a mind of its own. They answer to a larger authority than the mayor of New York. But most people are not interested in hearing excuses about how the mayor of New York is not able to rein in the NYPD. And also, it betrays the whole lie behind this, which is if I get in power, I can fix some of this stuff, when he doesn't actually have any power as mayor of New York.
If he gets in power, he can, like any mayor or governing person, do some work to fix some things. And he probably will. And I don't subscribe to the black and white thinking that he either can do it, and then he's doing it and things are working, and then the minute XYZ happens, it will unravel. I do think that I don't know how much of this is just like a self-moving apparatus that happens with or without the mayor's involvement,
Mm-hmm.
like you're suggesting. And I guess we will find out.
Yeah.
New York is also going to be very different than other smaller cities. He is the police's boss.
Yeah. He's nominally the police's boss, but the real people in charge of our society, which are not elected politicians, have spent a very long time building the New York Police Department as the frontline defense of their private property. And those people are ideologically committed.
Yeah, I agree. And those real people just spent an awful lot of their real money to try not to have this guy elected. So clearly there's some risk in having him in charge.
Sure.
If there was no risk, if it was just like, well, we're going to still do what we want to do anyways, the police are going to still listen, like call us instead of call him, then why spend any money?
Yeah. I mean, I can't refute the fact that they clearly didn't want him. So, and that would seem to imply that there's a reason they didn't want him. I think mostly what they want is they want people to not vote for him more than they are worried about him being in power.
Why? Why have people not vote for him?
Because they think that they want where people are in their political development is a serious threat, much more than who the.
Well, maybe the best thing that can happen is that having someone like him as mayor is not all downside in people's political development. You're saying it's all downside because he will let you down. It's all downside because you just wasted all your time. It's all downside because now you have to defend somebody like him when you shouldn't be defending somebody like him. But what if it's more complex and it's not all downside? Voting for him, participating in this, maybe there's some upside here. Maybe working with him as a governing body, maybe there's some upside in people's political development.
Right. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong.
You don't hope you're wrong. You know you want to be right. You think you're right.
I don't. That's not.
I mean,
I don't want to be right. I believe I'm right.
He's going to.
And I think I was right about AOC in exactly the same way.
To be really clear, I don't think he's going to be leading the communist revolution.
No, I know that you're not saying that. The question is not whether this fixes the whole problem, right? The question is whether this is a important material step in the right direction or counterproductive. And my position is it's counterproductive.
I think it might be a little bit of both, and we don't know yet. I also think he actually is forcing AOC to go back to what she originally said she was doing. If there's some pressure, yeah, I think she's showing up differently. I also think I want to be a fly on the wall in the DSA meetings, though. I have a lot of FOMO that I'm not.
Well, you can join the DSA.
I think that those are really interesting. Like that is a significant leftist party.
I mean, there's no question that the New York DSA is the most politically significant sort of leftoid political formulation in the country.
Yeah,
there's no question about that. People feel like he's the real deal because he seems to believe it himself, and he hasn't done any of the really horrible things that people do. I mean, I've noticed him being a little bit cagier because he got a little bit risk averse as they got close. It's like, there's the only thing I can do now is fuck this up. So I'm just going to like keep some of my thoughts to myself until I get across the finish line, which fine. That's respectable. But Bernie, people had this experience of Bernie radicalizing people. And I don't think that's what happened. I think people were radicalized by their experiences. I don't think Bernie doesn't exist. People are being radicalized by their experience of capitalism. And Zohran doesn't exist. People in New York City are being radicalized by their experiences of capitalism. The DSA, New York DSA, is very politically significant. And their responsibility is to take that horror and discontent about the system and funnel it into a political program to lead a movement, right? The movement is ready to go from being a simmering mass, which has no direction and no organization, and to organize it and give it a leadership and a structure and a direction. And my worry is, like, they get to take the credit for all these people who votes. I don't think you need to convince people to be against Cuomo that much. I think people fucking hate him for good reason. What you have to do, though, is convince them that the way to solve their problems is to vote for Zohran. And that's my worry, is that instead of asking them to do all kinds of other things, policy-wise, organization-wise, you ask them to vote for Zohran. So that ship has been spent, the political capital has been spent, and now we have to see what comes of it, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so the other headline is, when will J.D. Vance be divorcing his wife? Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, touched J.D. Vance's hair when she hugged him on stage. And it's pretty obvious to everyone that the ascendant trad wife, American right couple has to be JD Vance and Erica Kirk, especially since Donald Trump's about to drop dead.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, what do we do with Usha?
So I've seen some critiques of this which are like a woman wears like leather pants and suddenly she's like immediately has ulterior motives or something, which I kind of sympathetic to. Like, I don't know.
When was the last time you put your hands in someone's hair when you were hugging them?
I don't think I've ever done that to anyone besides you.
So they might just be sleeping together and there's no story there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of this discourse is that she's a manipulative harpy who's trying to like wheedle her way back.
Oh no,
significant.
I just for the record, I don't think it's that at all.
Yeah, you think a team of consultants said this is what we need to do?
Yeah, like this is the right wing, white American couple we need for like America's Hitler. So Man in High Castle.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the couple they would design in that America.
I mean, J.D. Vance is, first of all, he's Catholic, which is not exactly very.
I think that can be fixed. I think Erica Kirk is the way to fix that too.
Oh, is she convinces him not to be Catholic? That
yes.
he needs to be an evangelical?
Yes.
Is she an evangelical?
One fell swoop. We can get him away from the woman of color wife, away from the children. He can do a conversion away from Catholicism. Everyone's attention span is so short that in like a year, no one will even remember he was married to somebody else. I think I think the consultant class is at least testing it.
I think she's Catholic.
Even better.
So they'll both become evangelical.
I don't know what they'll do, but the consultant class is definitely.
Oh my gosh, she's in Miss Arizona, USA.
Yeah. Donald Trump's organization.
Oh, gross. So yeah, no, I do think it's a problem for them that the vice president, who's kind of a gross, dorky nerd, that I think everyone's kind of embarrassed about.
I mean, to the nerds.
I'm not saying that I dislike nerds. I'm saying it's a problem for them that he's a nerd. It's not a problem for me.
I think the nerds want him.
Well, sorry, you got him. Yeah. He's like, he wears the black eyeliner and he's.
Isn't that a goth thing?
It depends. If you pull it off, I think. If you pull it off, you're a goth. If you don't pull it off, you're a nerd.
I didn't know nerds wore black eyeliner.
So, well, I didn't know anyone did above the age of 12. But anyway, he's not exactly the charismatic guy that Trump is. What he is he's 100% Teal's creature. So, but I don't know if he's ideal. But I think Erica Kirk widow does a lot for him.
Yeah,
and having been married to and having children with a brown person, particularly a non-Christian brown person, is going to be a big deal for it.
So the same day that she touched his hair, she also announced to the stage and was very glowy about talking about him. And in that speech, he said it would be better if his wife was not the religion she was.
Like, he wishes she would convert. Right?
Yeah.
Which I think if you believe your wife is going to hell, you probably do wish she was going to convert.
Romantic.
Really,
That's
if you
romantic.
really believe, because you want,
it's romantic of
you want your family members to be saved.
The sweet gesture for him to say that on stage in front of everybody.
Yeah, the real thing I learned from that story is that he and his wife are absolutely atheists and think this is all crazy bullshit. He's just pretending because they met each other and they were both agnostics, and then they, suddenly he's a Catholic when he's running for vice president. She's
in the room with the consultants, and she's also workshopping this idea with them.
No, she's like, this is fine. As long as I get my check, I'm
yeah,
cool.
As long as he doesn't have to live with us, that's even better.
They have 3 kids together. They have 3 kids together, and they're going to be like, "Oh, this is a political inconvenience because you're a brown
You don't
person."
think Peter Thiel's creature can handle leaving his 3 children to become the ascendant American
I think
man?
he can handle it. I think I just want people to reflect on how fucking disgusting that is.
Well, I think the whole thing is disgusting.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that probably in about 3 to 4 months, the divorce will be announced.
I think they did want. I mean, if it is what it looks like, I think the hair touch was planted to see what the response was.
They were testing it.
How has the response been?
I mean, the internet loved it. I don't know how I'm sure the trad whites. I don't know. I stay away from the internet where the people who like J.D. Vance and Erica Kirk would be talking about it.
I don't think that divorcing Usha is enough. I think he's going to have to denounce her.
Denounce her?
Yeah.
Maybe
denounce their misogynistic offspring. That's where, I mean, this is,
Well, that's very Man in the High Castle.
Fuentes went after him as a race mixing trader, is what he called him.
Well, the consulting class.
Normal.
Well, the consulting class is testing that out too. What happens when he's called that? Do people like that?
That's probably true, because Tucker Carlson is also probably Teal's creature, and he's the one who had Fuentes on. So probably they're just trying to see if he can be the next president or not. If they have to find someone else.
That's right.
That's pretty horrifying. That's a horrible headline.
Oh, you're welcome.
One more, if I may. This story is going around of this old woman who was beaten by a settler in the West Bank. We touched briefly on
increased violence in the West Bank
last time we met. Yeah. So there's a really good interview on Chapo Trap House from this week on Tuesday with Jasper Nathaniel, who writes on Substack on Infinite Jazz. Infinite Jazz, get it?
Infinite Jazz?
Infinite Jest, Infinite Jazz. Okay. Anyway, a lynch mob in the olive fields and the state behind it. Is it worth reading? I'll put it in the show notes. But anyway,
and read about the destruction of all the olive fields while you're at it.
Yeah, but
very purposeful economic destruction of all.
Yeah.
The olive fields and a regularity in violence during and before the olive harvest for years. If you really want to read about something despicable.
Well, there's a battle of the olive fields. Because the olive fields are how the indigenous Palestinian families hold on to the land as active olive fields, and so there's a battle over trying to brutalize and intimidate.
It's also a major part.
Letting them fall fallow so they can.
It's also a major part of their economy.
Yeah,
is harvesting the olives and selling the olives.
Yeah, I mean, Jasper Nathaniel has a sort of a different take on it. He's a little bit of a different understanding of that, but but anyway, it's worth reading. There's a lot of video. He's there videotaping this, and long story short, he almost got killed with a bunch of people being attacked. He basically, his claim is he was led into an ambush by a bunch of settlers who were armed with guns and clubs and stuff. By the IDF, sort of lured them into a trap.
And he's an American.
And he was with American Palestinians when it happened.
And is the United States concerned about this?
They are not. And they have been not just because of Trump, but Democrats, his representatives in Congress. He's a New York. Speaking of New York, he's a New York City resident. His Congress people don't give a shit about this. Biden's people did a little bit better on like sanctioning some of the like worst offenders. A lot of these mob leaders, these settler mob leaders, are known and famous, for hurting people and killing people on camera, but didn't really do very much. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for the additional horrible headline.
You're welcome.
Oh, you brought us the artifact this week?
I did. So, you may have heard this, but there's a little bit of a rumor that these kids were only trans because a fashionable trend amongst the young people because of woke. It was like a brain virus that spread around from brain to brain and convinced people that they were trans or non-binary when they were not. So the woke backlash has freed people from the mind virus, and now turns out that young people are not nearly as trans or non-binary as they were before.
Oh, you found an artifact about that?
I found an artifact about this dynamic. This is Anna North writing in Vox. Are fewer young people identifying as trans? The debate over youth gender identity polling explained. Are young Americans becoming less likely to identify as trans? This claim is getting a lot of attention on social media after two researchers published survey data appearing to show a shift in youth gender identity. The first analysis came from Eric Kaufman, a Canadian professor of politics at the University of Buckingham in the United Kingdom, and a longtime anti-PC and anti-woke crusader. In early October, Kaufman published a report titled The Decline of Trans and Queer Identity Among Young Americans. Quote, the transgender share among university students peaked in 2023 and has almost halved since, from nearly 7% to under 4%, Kaufman writes in that report. A few days later, Jean Twenge, a professor of psychology at San Diego State University, posted on X that, quote, trans identification really is in freefall among the young, unquote, citing data from the Cooperative Election Study, a long-running survey of voting behavior and public opinion. Unlike Kaufman, Twenge is known most recently for relatively apolitical work on kids and smartphones. Several scholars have raised significant methodological questions about Twenge's and Kaufman's work, which has not been peer-reviewed or published in academic journals.
Well, good, great.
So I'm convinced.
So write an article about it.
Yeah. The Williams Institute, a think tank in the UCLA School of Law that has studied the number of Americans identifying as transgender since 2011, has not seen a similar drop in its data. The debate has bigger implications for trans rights. Socialist conservatives have already touted Kaufman and Twenge's work as evidence that trans people have ceased to exist, or that trans identity has always been suspect. Quote, transgenderism is effectively over. We destroyed it, end quote. Right-wing podcaster Matt Walsh posted on X in response to Kaufman's report. This is just a genocidal statement. Is what it is.
I don't understand. Is Vox writing about this because it's in the zeitgeist? Because not just because there's been two research studies that have no bearing, but because people are actually talking about this as people are no longer trans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At the same time, accurate data is important for representation, scholars and activists say. If trans people aren't counted in surveys, quote, it almost leads to a sense of isolation. Marlon G., an 18-year-old activist with the nonprofit Advocates for Youth, told me, quote, it's almost like there are less of my community that I can go to for support. The entire conversation is happening at a time of enormous stigma against trans people coming from the highest levels of government. Donald Trump made anti-trans messaging a core part of his second presidential campaign and, since taking office, has taken swift action to restrict trans people's access to gender-affirming care in public facilities. Meanwhile, prominent Democrats have walked back support for trans rights in an effort to win back Trump voters. Among their many other effects, these statements and policies could make it harder for researchers to get a clear picture of trans communities. Why would that be? An anti-woke professor measures trans identity, maybe. To understand current debates around youth, gender identity, and why they matter, it's helpful to understand a little more about Kaufman and Twenge's work. Are you ready to understand a little bit more about Kaufman and Twenge's work?
I think I understand Kaufman and Twenge's work.
Let's start with Kaufman. His new report draws from a few data sources, including Brown University student polling and surveys of undergraduates at major research universities conducted by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression over the past 5 years. In those data sets, Kaufman finds that the share of young people, quote, not identifying as male or female, unquote, has dropped significantly between 2023 and 2025. He also finds a corresponding drop in youth identifying with sexual orientations other than heterosexual. Quote, it appears that trans and queer are going out of fashion among young people, especially in elite settings, Kaufman writes.
Is that what he figured out?
I mean, so...
There's a lot of problems with that.
Immediately, he's relying on self-reporting at Brown University. Is there any reason why a queer person might not self-identify as queer at Brown University today? That maybe they were less worried about 5 years ago.
Well, yeah,
3 years ago.
There's the people not wanting to report. I mean, I certainly, if given the option, I am a cisgendered woman, and I have gone through and purged my demographic information, proactively purged my demographic information off of things online, given the environment. Like, switched everything to prefer not to say, or when looking at a form, not answered it. And that is a new behavior that would have never crossed my mind a year ago.
Yeah.
So there's like, it's just unnecessary risk to put yourself down as anything. But the other problem was that not identifying as neither is one form of being trans, but saying you're a woman or saying you're a man does not mean you are not trans.
Yeah. But
so that data is just dumb. And also saying especially elite universities, unless he's like actually comparing data sets across universities, he doesn't even know that. His university's happening to be elite ones, but it doesn't mean anything is specifically happening at elite universities.
Yeah.
He'd have to have a much, much larger data set, and I guarantee you he does not have it.
Yeah. I mean, if I was the clinician or social worker for a college student and they came to me and said, should I out myself as queer, I would not tell them.
In writing.
You know, and it's like, be yourself, live your life. But would you put it on official documentation? I would have to have a conversation. It's like, let's go to the pros and cons of this.
Yeah.
Because it may be worth the risk, but there is a real risk that this will come back and haunt you. And a lot of people, some of the people who are self-identifying in 2023, that ship has sailed for them. But this newer class of students, they have a decision to make about how open and public that they want to be. And, I would be worried about being arrested. I'd be worried about not being able to see my family.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a culturally, the difference between 2023 and today is not just the Trump administration. It's not just the Trump administration being rabidly anti-trans. It's not just the scary things where people realize that they might not have a passport because their passport has, passports have to be binary now, and they're going to seize passports that aren't. There's also a huge uptick in discussion around the surveillance state and what happens to your data and who owns your data. And so there's a lot of things in the soup that would make people be much more reticent to answering any questions in any sort of format that is going to be recorded.
Yes.
So can surveys be anonymous? Can surveys purge data? Can surveys make sure that people are safe? Yes, they can.
Those might be in peer-reviewed articles.
One should not assume that's what they are getting, especially if they've got an anti-woke crusader who's using the survey data.
Yeah, a guy who has an ideological bent.
It's very possible Brown's survey is done very ethically. He's not even doing the surveying. He's just using the data. But, don't put anything down. Don't put anything down on paper you don't have to, people.
Several journalists have raised questions about Kaufman's statistical analysis. The data is there, but the data analysis is bad. But probably the most basic criticism of his report concerns what he's measuring. The data sources he uses don't actually ask if people identify as trans. Instead, they ask for gender identity, offering options like male, female, or non-binary. Kaufman appears to have grouped together respondents who selected options other than male and female and counted these respondents as trans.
An idiot.
What an idiot. You're right. I was like, oh, well, he's comparing non-binary to non-binary. He's not even doing that. He basically ran the numbers a few different ways and said, oh, this is the one that fits my narrative, probably. This method leaves out many trans people who identify as male or female. Being trans and being non-binary are not the same. Kaufman told me in an email that, quote, not identifying as male or female, unquote, was an appropriate proxy for trans identity because, quote, trans includes non-binary. This is the position of trans movement organizations, unquote. He argues, even if his method doesn't measure all trans people, it's an appropriate way to measure trends because, quote, non-binary is a gateway between identifying with birth sex and identifying with the opposite gender in a binary way.
I mean, if he's measuring the same, if you're looking at people who did male, female, and non-binary and this year versus the year prior versus 5 years prior, you can see trends. It's just not giving you, I mean, you're seeing trends of people being careful about what they put down on paper more than anything, but it's also, it's not giving you the snapshot he's claiming it to be.
No. Somehow he's decided that being non-binary is a gateway drug to being trans.
That's a very way
which is
for it to
like,
say it.
You have to, if you're going to make claims about how this works, you should probably have spoken to a trans person like once or twice and not just have this all in your mind palace. He's decided that's how it works. However, other researchers have studied trans identity specifically without relying on such proxy categories. In 2025 report, the Williams Institute found that 3.3% of 13 to 17-year-olds in the U.S. and 2.7% of 18 to 24-year-olds identify in trans. In 2022, those figures were 1.4% and 1.3% respectively, which means that they've gone up, not down.
Oh, that's interesting.
Quote, we have not seen a decline in identification as transgender among the youth or young adults, or adults overall, says Jody Herman, a senior scholar at the Williams Institute. It's also worth noting that Kaufman's anti-woke stance could give us an ideological bang. No kidding.
Yeah. Really.
He launched the University of Buckingham Center for Heterodox Social Science, which published his youth gender identity report specifically to counter what he saw as woke ideas around race and gender. In a Substack post in 2024, he wrote that the social sciences and humanities have been skewed for decades because of the dominance of the left among the professorate, unquote, and that the center's goal was, quote, to form the kernel of an alternative social science in Britain, the only non-progressive social science center in the country. Kaufman told me that he doesn't believe the center's mission biases his analysis, and that, quote, ultimately with viewpoint diversity, academic freedom, and a common agreed set of scientific, objective, evidentiary rules, the best argument wins out. Sure, I'm sure.
An idiot.
The center is about rebalancing the social sciences, Kaufman said. I wouldn't want an end to progressive social science, but the problem is we don't have the other side represented. We have people reading the data and taking it seriously. We have no one lying about the data. And we need both sides represented.
Also, are the people online who are saying, making notional claims that trans is going to go away because it was all just woke bullshit. Those people, I don't know, probably don't even care if they have studies to back it up. It's not like they're citing Kaufman.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously doesn't care if he has a study to back it up because he doesn't have one.
Well, yes.
He's jumped.
It just seems silly because you've got these people on, TikTok making stupid claims, and they're like, my source is Kaufman. I mean, no one cares about the truth here on that side.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, so gay people have always been around. They've always been a part of the human race, and they've always been about the same percent of the population.
And actually, the data collection and analysis used to figure that out, like 400, 600,000 years ago, better than Kaufman's.
Probably, yeah. Now, there are periods of time in human history where the numbers seem to go up and down. They seem to coincide with social acceptance of those things. And people who insist that these things are a choice and a biological aberration or whatever want to tell you that there is a connection between the social acceptance of the thing and the thing itself. And they are absolutely correct. There is a connection. But the connection is not my pink-haired first-grade teacher convinced my kid that gender is a social construction and groomed them into being trans. Is people have feelings that they don't know how to express or deal with or talk about. And then an avenue that's social. The whole point of this was to make people feel comfortable expressing themselves in a certain way. And increasingly social scientists are coming to the same conclusion about trans people, that there's always been certain people who don't fit within the conventional understanding of sex and gender, that those people have always been around, just they haven't been allowed to be around. Either they were closeted and didn't even know themselves what they were because they had no language or identity that could express what they were, or they were themselves in private only and never in public because they knew the consequences would be catastrophic. And that's what these people really want, is to punish people.
The consequences to be catastrophic. Yes.
Right. So people are afraid of being who they are in public. And they're basically saying that is they want you to be able to get fired for this. They want you to be able to not be able to get married. They want you to be able to lose your job. Yep. Or I said that twice too. They want you to be afraid of whether you can own property, whether you can get your degree, all this.
Whether you can have a profession. Like, no, you said that already.
They even want to take people's jobs away.
They even want to make it so you can't have an income anymore.
That's really the only they've got. I guess that's the one tool. It for a while there, it seemed like, and I think people got this impression, and they should have known better, and I count myself among them, that this was just going to keep getting better and better. That gay people had been accepted not that long, like 2015, right?
When gay marriage became federally available.
I mean, that was illegal for them to get married, and like that's crazy. And then it wasn't. And very recently it wasn't, 10 years ago. And I think people said, oh, this is just going to keep getting better and better. We're going to, all of this, like, all of it is reactionary ideas of how people should live their lives, couched in some sort of language about freedom of religion or freedom of choice or something. But they want to control how other people live their lives. The same people who are really big on freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that those people were losing. That everyone could see that if I'm an adult, I can do what I want. I can live how I want. I can dress how I want. I can present myself how I want. I can love whoever I want. But I'm not hurting other people. It's no one's business. It's certainly not the government's business. And that was just going to keep getting better and better and better. And that these people were going to look more and more foolish and brutish and, you know, hateful and so on.
Right.
Right. So if you had a kid who was clearly like not cis or not, you know, queer in some way.
Gender creative.
I love it.
Yeah.
You would probably have encouraged them to be who they were. Do you have different feelings about that now that I feel like I don't know where this is going, but like, I think this is a serious thing for parents to consider. Is like, we could be looking at a situation where like within 6 months to a year, they're talking about the point of this is that normal kids are made into unnormal kids because of the intervention of adults. Wokeness is an intervention of adults on kids. The kids will be normal, non-queer kids if you let them. It's only when adults screw with their development that they believe that they're, you know, trans or non-binary or whatever it is, right?
Right.
So that the next step in that is to get them away from those adults, which includes their parents. So, like, well, how do you navigate this as a parent, a progressive parent who wants their kid to be themselves? Like, how do you evaluate those risks and have that conversation with your kid?
Well, I don't think you write down on any official documents anything about their gender identity. The school should not have that data. You should not write it down in forums. You should make sure the adults in their lives are not writing it down in forums, because all that does is put you in a position where you have to defend that data. So that's the major thing that's the major thing that I'm more aware of now than I was a year ago, which is like, that is not information that's needs to be volunteered nor stored. And it's actually something that's come up for me professionally because I work in technology and store people's data.
Yeah.
And for a long time, like the woke social justice line was, you should definitely ask about pronouns. You should definitely ask about gender identity, because you want to be accommodating to people when they arrive and use their proper pronouns. But I think actually being an official formal entity that's storing that data puts people at risk. So as a parent, talk to your kids' teachers about using the right pronouns if that's appropriate. If you can do that in your school and keep people safe, but don't have them recording that data in a database.
Do you tell your kid that you're doing that?
I think depending on the kid's age, you do. I mean, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to tell a first grader that, because they don't really understand how to protect their data in general, or what risks exist. Nor are they responsible to do that. Responsible for that. But
so at a certain age, like, the paperwork about them is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And solely your responsibility. At some point it becomes something that you discuss with them.
At some point, it's right. They have a shared responsibility.
I mean, do you think I would be tempted to say that it does psychological damage to someone when they're told that they are not allowed to be their full person in every aspect because of the repression of the government. But you're saying is
it does do psychological damage.
But you cannot therefore then pretend the repression of the government doesn't exist.
Right. And I think as a parent, you need to navigate at what age they can handle that psychological damage. Like, there's no reason to expose a 5-year-old to that damage, because the 5-year-old's not the one filling out online forms.
Right.
And if they're, I mean, we are lucky to be in an urban environment and a school system environment where I do think there's truly progressive ideas about this, and that there's generally an interest in making schools safe and inclusive. And that includes about gender identity. And I don't think we're misleading our children by saying that they can do that right now. I think if that were to rapidly change, and our children have to show up differently to stay safe, you would have to have a conversation with your kid younger, or move them out of that scenario.
I mean, the problem with the people involved is it's not just that they want to do the right thing and that they believe in the right thing. It's, are you willing to go to jail to protect people or not if you have this information? And like that's asking a lot of even very good people.
But that's the thing that you have to do. You have to make risk choices about data and information. Informal information of someone prefers this pronoun is much harder to act on than formal documented information.
Sure.
So control your formal documented information.
Yeah. Unless what you're looking to do is bully school staff anyway. But
people want to go in and bully school staff to get informal accounts of which students are gender creative. I think there'll be some warning signs on along the way.
You'll know that it's coming. I mean, the thing is, it's coming or not.
I mean, if that's what's happening, that's what's happening. But it's not happening right now.
No. There's also a danger here, too, which is like you don't want to comply. Right. You want to do this like compliance of everything that they want to the point where you're basically enforcing traditional gender norms on your own children on behalf of the state because you're so worried about what the consequences of not doing that are. That to me seems worse. Is like they aren't all powerful and all knowing, and acting like they are does a particular damage to you and your child.
Yeah, and you don't drive everything underground at the first sign of trouble. If you were to do that, then there wouldn't have been any of the advances we just talked about, where people were like, "Hey, you can be this," wouldn't exist if there's been trouble for years.
Yeah. I mean, Harvey Milk's big thing was tell everyone that you're gay, because everyone in your life needs to know that they love someone who's gay in order for us to fix this problem. And if you protect yourself to the detriment of the group, then you're going to suffer and the group's going to suffer. Yes. You have to be brave about it.
I think that's totally right. And I think it gets tricky when you have kids, because kids can't make choices about their own risk. They really need you to help them understand their own risk.
Yeah.
And so
I just worry they're not going to understand it, so you have to make a decision for them.
Right. And it has been a little bit of a whiplash situation where if you were in certain urban areas in 2024 and 2023, it looked like it was extremely progressive to present your gender in any number of ways and knew you were safe as a child. Looking as a child, you saw evidence that this was normal and safe. And then a year later, you saw evidence that, there was a federal government that wanted you not to exist. That's a pretty big whiplash to manage as a child. So as a parent, you do have to decide what the narrative you're sharing that allows for expression that is not unnecessarily risky or unnecessarily naive and risky. And I don't know how you navigate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, for what it's worth, the people who have made kids who knew that they didn't fit within the traditional binary in the way that the federal government wishes they did, thank you for making kids feel like they could be themselves and for teaching them about other options. Because there is what this comes down to is finding some sort of language and some sort of vehicle to express this difference inside you that you don't have a way of contemplating or I think that really does a lot of harm to people. And I think it's done a lot, kids are so much better off having lived in that world. So if you were one of those people, thank you. Keep doing it, please. But thank you for taking the risk. Don't let these people convince you did something wrong by making kids feel like there wasn't something wrong with them because they didn't feel like everybody else.
I think there's something about code switching to talk about here too, because kids are very observant. They understand what's safe and what's not safe, and how they can act in different spaces and why they can act different ways in different spaces. So I think part of the thing to try to balance with your kids is a reality about the risk and avenues for safe and open expression and where those avenues are. There's racial code switching that happens very naturally by kids, and no one's explaining it to them, really. It's like they've picked it up very clearly because there's very real consequences to acting certain ways if you look certain ways and being naive to that does not do anyone any favors. And being naive is not the same as not having any avenues to express yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that the thing about gender expression and perhaps the extreme, the whiplash thing that's happened between oh, look, it's so progressive and inclusive. Oh, Trump's now in charge. Is you probably need to have some very real conversations about potential risk and what self-expression looks like and how those things can and are in tension. And it doesn't mean you have to hide who you are, but it doesn't, the way our kids exist in the world is not like, I don't think it's responsible as parents to think that the way our kids exist in the world and that you can just believe it's risk-free and that they can also believe it's risk-free.
Right. Play this game where it's risk-free because it makes you feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that is idealist and dangerous. And I think it's really important that kids have lots of avenues for safe self-expression. It doesn't mean that all the avenues exist, though. And this, in some ways, relates to what we talked about in the White Boys episode, which is that we want there to be a diversity of safe avenues of expression of gender for boys and girls. Mm-hmm. And we want it to be pro-social behaviors and pro-social sort of attitudes and lots of diversity of expression. And it's kind of the same story here. And there are material consequences to some things that, if you obfuscate that reality, you are creating risk for your kids that they have not opted into.
Yeah. They can't possibly consent to.
Right.
The point about code switching is interesting because unlike queer kids, black kids don't get to pretend they're not black. Almost never can they get away with that. And another interesting thing about, and this is not I'm not saying one is worse than the other.
Some queer kids would say they also really can't pretend.
Yeah, sure. I think that's
probably
true. I think that's probably true.
There's a passing element that is available often in queerness that's not available in blackness,
especially in the documentation realm. But the interesting thing about the code switching is like a black kid's a black kid regardless of how they're acting, but potentially a trans kid can pull out pass as cis without being by their behavior. So there's a real sense in which that code switching is like a survival tool which black people develop. And you hear about throughout the whole George Floyd protest thing, this conversation in which black people had to have with their black children about the police and their skin color and what that meant, because they had to understand the risk as a matter of life and death. That's a conversation they had to have in some degree because their kids you were not able to put white on the documentation for school. Not really.
Right. And if you were seen as a black kid, and there's no escaping it.
Right.
There's no escaping having to have that conversation because there's no behaving a certain way and not being black.
Yeah. And there's a certain sense in which those experiences need to be informing. These are survival methods that were born out of a practice of having to survive extremely repressive situations. Things are bad now, and they could get really bad, but they're probably not as bad as the Jim Crow South anywhere in the country. And so these are ways of living which balance risk and being true to oneself that have sort of been proven through practice, which I think people need to do. People who are having newer experiences of this, which is, for instance, trans people aren't new, but millennial parents having trans or non-binary children is new. That's probably where to look, is how did people survive this in the past? And there's trauma. I mean, we're talking about the psychological damage it does. All people who are victims of racism have some sort of psychological damage from that. It's impossible not to, and probably some of it has to do with the feeling of being outed as something that you're not supposed to be in public spaces, right? And that's the constant pain of being trans, is everyone sees that you're transgressing the norm, and that's a painful, scary thing to do in public. And also, I'm sure, exhilarating and empowering and stuff as well. But
yeah, the code switching thing, it's also code switching around being black in America has a generational and community based element to it that's going to be different for cis parents of trans kids. So there's ubiquity to how do you have the conversation with your black son, and you're having it as black parents who had parents who had parents who had parents, and there's probably passing down of certain generational trauma or risk aversion that's maybe not always appropriate for the current context, or maybe it is appropriate for the current context, but there's there's something about that's similarities across the generation, like lived experience passed down, and also a whole community that's got a similar experience. And then you have...
It certainly feels less icky for a black person to tell another black person you need to be careful than a cis person to tell a trans person you need to be careful, even if that trans person is your child.
Right. So and then it's different and more uncharted territory to have cis parents or gender conforming parents, or parents performing gender in a certain way and then their kids performing gender in a very different way. How to have those conversations, and those conversations are just less well trod because they're just more unusual. And there's the lived experience element is very different, and it is a bizarre time to kind of be going from a period of progress out of a period of progress so quickly. I'm not even sure that there's a good historic example of, like, I mean, maybe Reconstruction, where you've got certain progressive elements happening in society and then a real slapback. But it's, I don't think there's not a lot of scripts and or established like protocols for having these conversations with your kids. And I do think looking towards like what happened during like other periods of LGBTQ history and other movements around gay rights and gay experience in America, and probably also looking at some of the parallels between about what it means to navigate America as in a non-white body, but it's a pretty unique set of circumstances. Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line, I think, is like most of the experiences of pushing forward history for marginalized groups is people being true to themselves and demanding that, being willing to take the risk to demand of the proper like human dignity and respect that they deserve, but not doing that on the bodies of children is the thing.
Although, I mean, who integrated schools?
That's true.
That was on the bodies of children.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
And
they took a huge, serious personal risk to their health and safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, they had
and those parents had to make that decision.
Yeah, they obviously had adults who were supporting them, but those kids walked into those schools by themselves, and not just on the day of the photographs being taken, like day after day.
Yeah.
So
absolutely true.
And they had parents who were like, "Yep, my kid's going to be one of those 4 kids walking into that school."
Yeah, that's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Well, that's a wrap.
All right. Thank you all so much. Talk to you next time.
We're not talking to them. We're just talking to each other.
Bye-bye.
Say what Bugs Bunny says.
That's all, folks. That's not Bugs Bunny.
Porky Pig.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
As you grow old, your powers will fade. As you grow old, your powers will fade. As you grow old, you're on the make, and you don't do regret. You're always out for what you can get. You think like a snake, and you ooze like a snail. Let the trail go cold as you swallow your tail. With your low-rent skills and your heart of flint, telling your tales that are unfit to print. You're all weasel words, backed up by the boots, obsessed like the rest, with a promise of loot. Your pies will fade as you grow old. 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 You demanded the sea, it obey your commands. You grab at the land with both of your hands. But candles will burn, and time will reveal all that you've done and the money you steal. The suffering you're causing gives you no pause for thought. You You've got your claws in the dead summer's heart. Birds will return, as the birds always do. When they come home to roost, they'll feast on you. Your pies will fade as you grow old. Your pies will fade as you grow old. Your pies will fade as you grow old. Your pies will fade as you grow
God damn it. Trick me. Yes.
That's what democratic socialists do. They just trick. They just trick people.
It did. They said, oh, you're against capitalism? Right this way to support capitalism. Right this way, sir. Right this way, old lady. Right in here in the booth.
With the chocolate. Yep, right there.
There's a line of chocolates. Just followed it.